Thank you.
Where the say you be mad that the aqua bakese Paoli the above YouTube channel, my platform. Say my platform, yeah, platform one. I try my best to say me de niyama ebeba beboa adofo ne baso. Inti say we obi a wotwam na wapie ha na say wabeto ye nyame ne me papa ebetwetwe nkomo a ede mmoa ebre school for inti bomodin say wobepa akonya na wobetie bi we ya awofo a wobetie bi na wobetimi dia support o child nti em say eniyama a ye ka wa ha no sometime bitimi ye aware asem odo ho asem ene courtship no ekwan a we abrante a na ababaawa wobesi bi ede wo besi ho ana wobeboaboa ho de ahia okunu ana sayire eniyama process ye lifestyle ye just good news ne ye modern say ye de ba ha ye mia ye ni say yɛmfa nneɛma basabasa emmeto ha ma nkrofo ma enhwe eti all the time no nneɛma a ɛyɛ papa saa nom na yɛde ba nti nne no yɛwɔ papa kɛseɛ paa wɔ ha sɛ mia me papa kɛseɛ ɔsa yɛ elder of Church of Pentecost nti yɛgu so yɛyɛ woyɛ Church of Pentecost ni na wopie ha na wansubscribe to your channel pa ho bɛ me nwanwa ɛwɔ sa yɛ papa wa ha ɔbɛka sɛ yɛn nyinaa yɛde akoma pata yɛ papa kyi ne yɛ support channel
Yes.
etimi ya kese ma adofo timi nti dada obin we de ye bema wakwa aba kese wo Lydia Boaf YouTube channel na wada ho adi ama adofo a wo tie ye hu nipa a oye
Pacho bebre mame medase se sabreu me no betwetwe san komoyi edin no se ne oboye no edin ankasa ye Edward Obin elder na de Pentecost for na de mame ame mame din o de mame ankasa de Edward Obin in praying at this point in time now I work as a senior rule engineer with New York Independent Service Operator. That is the company that controls the electrical grid for New York State. That is where I work. I'm also an elder of the Church of Pentecost at Albany. And in the church also, I am the regional auditor for New York region.
Amen.
I'm married with a beautiful wife, Mrs. Agnes Obin. Aggie. We have 3 children, Jennifer, Beverly, and Edward. Jennifer and Beverly are married, and so they've left home. And I have 1 grandchild, Easy. Apart from that, life goes on. We're looking forward to a day when we can put our pens down and say goodbye. We've retired and we're going home.
Daddy nyame shira pa minim say we are very busy. I really appreciate say waje me so na wona me ba be yes video na minim say video be ye mfaso ama emofra omo especially US ye de US college tips near Babem. I don't know much about other different countries.
Yeah.
Yes, better after almost some work for us and any almost so actually also for the idea. So you'll be our US has said the end and I make us a utrim qua. Ya papa be my tips are pie mu sham. Aye, ain't that impacho. I'm saying said the well with him no Yabeka Safa hoye preparing for college. US has say nampa travel Brazil baby say sabofra ni do grade benya and the first or shall say cry drink college ne
Nigeria pempe brain no ya na gina awofo ne so more than the child. Say awofo no ye nipa bi a sabio me nka ne dendin bebre. On akosku aduru anim kakra dia ya na ontimi esiesie nkwara no animu na in the sense that emra kwara no wo nursery even through grade 6 no they'll be preparing this child and the more talented kids say akorani drew nkorani bebre ho so mbo homodin by 3 years they can read, by 4 years they can do the mathematics. So from then on that child is preparing himself. If our phone to me manage trans homework unsupervised or supervisor. Who said the child is matured. As to when can you go to college in India? Again, it depends on the child. In the US here, I don't think there's any age limit as to when you can go to college. So, onyame adom no ma onyansa ne nimdia, even at 6 years old, we have kids that have entered college at 10 years. There was about a year or two ago, there was one child who was featured on, I think CNN or so. He was in college doing what do you call medicine at age 12 or so.
Yeah.
Which in normal cases is not possible. But what we're saying is that and if I can see be say you was sorry be more. Yeah, not sorry by organizing some programs that will agitate and motivate the children to look up. But under the normal, putting everything aside, apart from the fact that the child is talented, putting everything aside, I think the most prevalent age that people should or would be looking at college is after sometime. Most of us look at college at grade 12, which is a very bad experience. You don't wait till grade 12 to look for college. If I'm giving an advice, I would say that start prompting your child and working with your child to look for college at grade 8. In the sense that some of the high schools have what we call the bridge program. The bridge program is such that some schools have CNA programs, some schools have LPM programs, some have even RM programs in their schools. And so the essence is that if that child is interested in medicine or in medical field, that child can take that as an experience to work his way through. You don't wait till grade 10 to enter the LPM program. You should have prepared yourself at grade 9, getting yourself ready for the LPM program or the CNA program or any of the medical programs that are available. There are some schools also who has what we call the computer assisted programming, where some software development programs, which is given to, I think most schools start at grade 9. And so if the child is interested in becoming a software engineer or a computer engineer, that might be the time that the child should be. So the parents should look at the school, look at what the school offers, and then make sure that you register your child in those programs. Some schools have what you call the robotic programs, where even at grade 9, they start building robots. Wow. And so if your child is interested in any of this, and it's not a matter of your child is interested, you as parents should encourage and move your child towards some of those programs. As akwara when you obeto car no onamano hwehwe car keys. And if we're preparing in terms na ebeboa no. And normally, we should look at looking at college at grade 10, because that is the time they are preparing to write their state board exams. Some of them are able to write their state board exams as early as grade 10. So if he has passed all the GED by grade 10, he is ready to go to college at that point in time. Okay. And then on top of that, some schools also have what we call the accelerated program, whereby in grade 10, 11, and 12, they can take college level credits. Okay. That is, you register if you're doing geography, instead of doing geography at the, at the high school level, you do that geography at a college level. You'll be graded as a college student, and you'll be given a GPA for that college student, college GC. I was fortunate to have my daughter, Beverly. Beverly did the college level classes starting at grade 11 or so. And so by the time he was in grade 12, he had 16 credits, and all of them, he got a 4.0 in those credits. But he messed up somewhere along the way.
Yeah, Daddy, I'm so happy say because I'm say nkwalaa ni bi wɔ hɔ a agorɔ wɔ wɔn ani so.
That
Sɛ
is
school parents na prompt wɔn a wɔn ahu sɛ ɔsɔ wɔn hyɛ wɔn tim sɛ they will go to college in the future. Wɔanhwɛ yɛ a na wɔn de agorɔ ɛna yɛ wɔ akwadaa bi wɔ nso a for some reason no nyame bɔɔl no sabi awofoɔ koraa nko school anim adeɛ nso bɔn sa koraa naa timi nsa kɔ school no college ni duro akyire mi du pɛmpɛn nso bɔn sa ɔno ana wosɔ na by 6th grade or 5th grade koraa na wadraw the list of the kind of school she or he wants to go, then watwerɛ ne biribiara nti sɛ yɛtie wo yɛ awofoɔ na wo na wonim wo ba awofoɔ sɛ wo ba yɛ obi agorɔ n'ani so yeah, n'adwene sɛ college ka n'adwene ho a yɛntwetwe college ho adwene ho nkɔmmɔ no mmra wɔ mu tirim. Okay, daddy, eti yɛmmisa sɛ abɔfra no anya hu awie sɛ ɔbɛkɔ college no. Okay, eti bosome bɛn mu ɛna wɔ sɛ ɔfele application America ha ɔmo de mmerɛ na ɛyɛ ɔmo adeɛ ɛpa ho ɛno ano no.
Yeah, ɛnokwasɛm no nea maame nka wɔ ntwa toɔ for first conversation na yɛfaeɛ no. Awofo mesrɛ bebree akwara biara ne stage of learning yɛn nyinaa no ɛnyɛ pɛ ɛwɔ adesua no mu. Some are very late starters, some are early starters. Nti sɛ wohu sɛ wo ba no mmɔdenbɔ ɛyɛ very low a ɛma ne nhaw bebree. Ɛsiane sɛ he can pick up somewhere along the way. Nti yɛa ne mpɛn bebree no yɛn awofoɔ no we give up. And instead of waiting for God's timing to help that child, we immediately push that child into some group or condition that will affect his life for good. According 8 years or whatever name they call it, and yet the school and the parents may be forced to put that child in that disabled list. But if you allow God the time, He will. In my experience, I remember when we were in high school, one of my juniors, he was not one of the well-performing guys, and everybody was always talking about him. Several years later on, I met him in Canada, and he did O-level, the high school equivalent, he wrote it 3 times. A-level, he might have written it more than necessary. And yet when I met this guy in Canada, he was the director of design for a Canadian company. Wow. And the company had given him a helicopter that he travels with whenever he was going anywhere. The company was in forestry. Wow. All that they did was go through the forest and cut the trees and manage the trees. And here was this guy. Now he has so many patents to his name. And so when you give God chance, God opportunities, He will model your child according to how He will do it. Now coming back to Tambena High School. In America, we have 2 sessions. We have the early admission. Early admission, by November, the schools will have decided on your application. And so if you want the early admission, then make sure that by June, starting May, you are looking at the application. Okay. June ending when the school is closing, or July latest, you have put in your application, filled all the necessary documentations that you need to get admission to college. What happens is that if you are in grade 12, by November, which will be your first semester in high school, grade 12, you will have received an admission. So in your case, you don't have anything to worry again for the rest of the other semesters that you have. Yeah. We encourage students to apply for the early admission. The only downside is that if you apply for early admission, it presupposes that that is the school that you'll be attending. And so in making the choice for the early admission, make sure you know which school you are attending. And so that is the early admission. Then the second one is the normal admission period. Normal admission period, and I think the high schools will help you, your, your admission counselors and your teachers will help you fill up the forms, and they have this. I think January, begin your application. By February, first week in February, you should have submitted your application. So you don't wait again. Don't wait until the last week to do that. Make sure you prepared yourself. You have all your transcripts. You have all your recommendations from your teachers, and you have submitted the admission papers to the school that you want to go to. The question we ask ourselves is, which school should I select? I know that many of us, especially parents, we're looking at the fees.
Yeah.
And so if I choose Harvard, it's equivalent to at least coming up with about 50,000, a year to 70,000 a year, adding housing and food and other things. And so it might be too high for me. Then what about the state colleges? The state colleges or the state universities also charge not less than most. It used to be that they were about 10,000 to 15,000, but most of them have raised their fees also to catch up with the private schools. And so most of them are in the neighborhood of 25,000 to 40,000, depending on which state you are in. Then we're looking at the colleges, the 3-year colleges. They are also there. In that case, the 3-year colleges, their fee per credit is cheaper. It's cheaper. The question we ask ourselves is, "Awofo anasa krani bisa no ho se emu ne wan na memfa." My advice is say, Sakwara you be an independent student. The American say apply to all these 3 sessions: the private college, the state college, and then the community colleges. Apply to all of them. I wouldn't say that choose one and leave the other. After all, it is God who is said a man planners his way, but it's the Lord who chooses. And so don't eliminate yourself from an opportunity that God might have set up for you. Having said that, me can say, sa akwara no obi a otimi sua de na nadwen mu da ho ne se wanya college ko a opete se opesoko Harvard nanso no wantimi anya admission to Harvard no as he desired, or admission to the state colleges. And I say fees ni buy no awofo no ntimi entini yebetimi ni se obeko community college. Mesra awofo ni bebre e mamba nko community college if that child is not a serious individual student who can study. Asiane say okotra community college ho na se wa money ho modern no konya no a edru time a opese okọ 4 year okoye 2 year kan ho na wontimi nye 2 years no okokoduru ho a ombema na repeat classes na o fairly or community college ni nyina. And quite often no, I would advise that if that child is a very good student, very, very brilliant student who can go to community college and make A's and A pluses, you are setting yourself up for a good school. Because if you have the A and the A pluses and you've done the 3 years and you apply to Harvard, you are no longer entering Harvard with your high school grades. You are entering it with your college entry grades. So you might have spent less money at the 3 years, and so you have just about 2. Most schools will take you for 2 more years. It's in real few cases that they will take you for the 1 year because you've gone the 3 years. No, most will let you go in at the 3rd year to start with, and in that case, you have just the 2 years fees to pay for. Other than that, I advise that let everybody apply to the 4 year. If you go and sit in the 4 year and you get a C at law, after all, you got in your you've gotten a degree anyway.
Okay.
And so instead of going to community college to go and get C's, then I advise that you go to the university to get C's there.
I think so that the made the pass or the community college then about because now me see maybe sana or the abem them say Minim say nkwalaa bebree duru so mo ko college na even parents can advise them say oh community college first because I don't know e mada no e ka megu so bebree loans
Yeah.
Ehu ne say nkwalaa ne bi ho mo start ho na oni omo di nkomo mo kire say amoa wo mo afeti omo mum rather no omo call college na nkasa no as attraction omo abeche because colleges ne bi o a okwa courses na we or community college no they don't accept it. Studying all over anti I think course and careful so we go 2 years account no we no I to say as fake na say be was
okashase ayampa ayanokwasem
na nka na e also we born the preko na we nya mo na o ko start different na as na kwhyem wo ho
that is true
say yes yes ade
enunti ne ka say awofo ne akora ne entrance na onhwe again so obane person ye medicine and answer a medical field now. Look at the final college of Bekwako Wiewumuno. Make sure say community college, on credit, is accepted by that other college. In most cases, state colleges, will take the credits from state community colleges. But most private schools may not take the community colleges credits. And when you are doing that, you need to be careful the school that your child will ultimately end up with and make sure that he's not wasting 3 years of his or her life in that community college just to apply to another university. And yes, they will accept you, but they are accepting you to first year or a second year or repetition of most of the courses that you've already paid for. And so it's a deliberate attempt on behalf of the parents to make sure that they do these things, help the student get them. I will also say that, what do you call it? High school guardians, but my experience is that, I'm sorry if you're a high school guardian, they don't guide very well. They categorize, especially before near they categorize it in a very different way. Oh, you are good in sports, so go and do sports medicine. That is not what God might have assigned for that child. And therefore, you put him, oh, you are good in sports, so go and do sports medicine, go and do physiotherapy, go and do this, or perhaps go and do history, go and do this. They will guide you in that way. But if you as a parent don't get yourself involved there, then what they assign to your child is what the child may want to do. And me mafutu ni say drum embra nkwara ne beko school na awofo no enye sa so dia asori ko a akwara ne ko no asori empanyimfo emfa won ho nyimu bi esa ase nkwara ni asori ne daach enti si yen amfa yen ho anyimu bi a mesre se enka asori mo meti guardians counselors 1 or 2 bi on between abon nkwara ya eko school no wetimi adarete won ma course bi a onyame betimi amawuram. I think that is it, but the ultimate onyame so. In my line of work, I've met so many people who have come from nowhere and have been somebody. My first, when I moved from Rochester to Auburn, I worked with Key Bank. My supervisor had a PhD in philosophy, nothing to do with computer science, and yet he was my director in computer engineering department. And the two of us wrote, a patent together. And then there was one other guy that I met when I was in Canada. He did biology, and he was teaching in a Christian school. But then we realized the school couldn't pay him and he was struggling. So I took him aside and said, my dear brother, why don't you consider computer engineering, network engineering? You don't have to go back to college. You can just start with some certification classes. And he did. Right now, he's one of the directors at Toronto Dominion Bank in Canada. And so God works his ways out. Yakasa bebre dear, but me for win show. And the mesre our phone na Miss Ramon. The computer field is growing. There are so many opportunities. I am encouraging over here now, when the students come first here now, I encourage all of them to register for a computer certification class. They call them CompTIA A++, cyber security, computer electronic auditing. Register in any of these. If you are able to get your CompTIA A++, whilst you are in the first year, you can use it to work. You can get a job in the computer field as a network support engineer, software support engineer, whilst you are in college. I've known some of the kids who are taking advantage of that. So whilst you are in the first year, second year, the companies are paying them $20 an hour, $40 an hour to do 20 hours a week on behalf of the company. So your fees and your dependent on your parents becomes less. I encourage parents. No. Having said that, also, man, me pacho bebre yanko ye chikakra.
Okay.
Enya nkwara ni nyina na betu akọ college.
Okay.
Enya nkwara ni nyina na betu akọ college. And so the fact say wadamfo bi ba eko medical school no enkyere so ba betu akọ medical school. Entino at grade 7, 8, and 9. Yentri aboase nhwehwe akwara ne ebrem ne ne dachim kakraman. See a bit timia. Some of these computer classes that we're talking about, you know, register the child. He's sitting at home. Instead of doing the video games, they can do these classes and get some interest in any of these fields so that they can move into those fields when they finish high school without having to go to college. And if it is nursing, yes. And then we have in New York, we have what we call the BOCES. I don't even know the spelling, the acronym for BOCES, but all that is for adult students who cannot go to college. They run these classes for them. Mechanical engineering, draftsmanship, LPN, CNA, for a year or two. That gives them some soft skills that they can begin to work with. So not every child, he wants to be an electrician. He doesn't have to go to a 4-year college to become an electrician. He can go to any of these trade schools. Yes, it's called the trade schools. In the New York, they call BOCES, but it is a trade school where it's about a year or two, you finish, you have your trade certification, which you can begin to work with. And now, for the young Karani, me, I call college. And you know, mama, yes, Anna, at the Korani Koshe College. I mean, Jesus, what be a question be along the way. I didn't think Korani be taking 6 years, 7 years in college. Yes. Free Haby. It's as a Korano, and then about brain so Obeko College. Now, so it's as in our 4 person college into near not him. Or no, for 40 classroom, not green knee classroom, or at the bed. Into your bra, and you know, Mama Yan na Yama and Korano the freedom to move.
Daddy, why are the pioneer for all these tips? So I'm fine show more. I mean, so you'll be okay about Kalani Pine. And my dad, my come said, Daddy, dear, my friend, I'm out for papa. Daddy, yes, be for financial aid. So I'm a drew some mobile college, and so I won't say financial aid is a no bet me on my nose.
Financial aid, you know, normally, no, not high schools nankasa publish some financial aid programs, and also call your academic counseling officer. All financial aid booklets be the wait me up na what we should. Near to some so school now corner also has their financial aid packages. A work. Yes, I say America school no obi atue bi there's no, yes, you may get a full scholarship to go somewhere, but yet the parents will have to support you every now and then. But a woman say, about 5 or 6 years ago, I think I might be wrong, but I think there was a publication that came out which says about $1 billion was left in a scholarship fund that has never been used because no one applied to them. And to say, oh, school, you will have to apply for the scholarship and ask financial aid, you know. And school no apply, and the school in some cases the school will award you the financial package or the scholarship based on your academic work. But quite often also they will look at your credit, your financial status. Say ebia parents now awofo entimi entua ya na school ni bi ema awofo no that financial aid package based on the fact said awofo no entimi ntua. But looking at it in total no niamesra awofo no say as a small trust na mo sese akwara ne da chimu. Say no most the average what do you call it, college cost is around 30 to 40,000 a year, and only a median a year. And if you look at it, the child is going to go to college for 4 years, assuming that he borrows 40,000 a year. Obewe college, not the car $160,000 on top dine, on top car, and so no mortgage at the nutrition. And so for such a person, ya nene nshase no eye din kakra emma no. Intimestre said, awofo no ene nkwara no should do their homework on the financial aid no package no. You don't have to apply to the financial aid in your school alone. There are several scholarship company. I think there's scholarship.com or yes, I think scholarship.com where you register and you can then browse at all the various scholarships that are available that you can apply to. Again, I always take delight because of student work now. In Indiana, I'm always reading. There was a Chinese student at UCLA in what do you call it? LA, Los Angeles. He finished medical school, and at the end of the medical school, he had $110,000 in his account. He went to school for free, ended up with $110,000 in his account. And the interviewer was asking him, how did he come about that? He said, I applied for every scholarship, whether in medicine, whether in history, whether in geography, whether it's $10, whether it's $1 million. I applied for them. He said, the best I will lose is a postage stamp. Wow. And so parents shouldn't be worried, or the students shouldn't be worried as oh, I have applied for this scholarship and that scholarship. That's it. Do your homework and apply for every scholarship. Sometimes the scholarship may say for women only. Apply for it. It is just your postage stamp. Who knows how God will work for you? They will spell, instead of what is that, Benjamin, they may spell it as Belinda and give you the Belinda scholarship and let you go to school for free.
Daddy, you must know, and it's like Pasebia Bebomu. Say, Obi, auntie, your message in tem. It's a kaka crab in a big cry where we were walk up a gunachia where we squares a car over to yanye a caketua loans. Ain't he? Sa scholarship, see our kind of was a nipan bet me a go back. No, I feel Libiana and no bet me a support him at least Nebia, only in the bet me at a tin ne hot soccer cramanoa.
There be so when Yakobo Canada is difficult to get rid of. The only thing that I can say about that then enter into the federal program, whereby if you work for a state, a local government, or the federal, no, then within 10 years, your loans will be forgiven. You just have to pay the minimum. By the end of the 10 years, having paid the minimum, whatever is left behind will be forgiven. And until yesterday said, scholarships in the endorse intima awofono and to turn as a crowd. No more say they will apply And if they apply, the Lord will always make a way for them. What do you call? There's a school out here, Plattsburgh. As we were speaking now, about 6 or 7 years ago, na mini school for ni be kasasa. And me catch on say me pamocho, would you apply for any scholarship? Just apply. Don't even look at it. Apply. And when you finish, put your hand on the computer and say that, Lord, grant me favor. Grant me favor. And so Mary applied for this scholarship from Plattsburgh, NHI scholarship. And apparently the NHI scholarship was 45,000 for tuition and 3,000 for scrub or no year nursing. And so every semester they gave her 3,000 extra dollars for her clothing, apart from the 45,000 a year that they gave her. And not because he was an extraordinary kid, he was just an ordinary kid. He applied and unyame emano unyam ewo onwa selecting no. And you know, so what apply? If you don't apply, you're not going to get it. And so apply. That's what you, and don't apply to only one, apply to as many as possible. Take the example. Me University of Concordia in Montreal. Me mate I no you know. Obia apply and check ne be anya more ye bank coach more anya more bank how anya more ha. And I'm in quantity me sure now. Obronini back baby Samson Edward, which company are you going to work with? So I haven't gotten one yet. And he said, didn't you apply? So, oh yes, I applied to 4 companies. He said, what? I applied to 50 companies and I got one. And I said, wow.
Wow.
And so the point at stake is that let us, right now, most of the application for scholarship, you don't have to mail it and you don't have to pay anything for it. And so why don't you apply?
Yes.
All that they need is your name and address and which school that you're going to go to. And that's all they need. So apply for all of them. And if they give it to you, they won't say that, this scholarship gave you 20,000, so we are giving you 10,000. If the maximum is 10,000 for each of the scholarship, they will all give it to you because they don't know which ones you have applied.
So some scholarships and so much because apply and also as a estate and sana just a be and some no into also
and no a guidance nah.
What away for
yes, but no. But 1 year so on saying
yes.
And as they say, what do you call it? A bit say don't use it and this one brace will easier. So even if you go to what do you call Microsoft, what do you call it? Bing or any of the web browsers, they have what we call Grammarly. Grammarly is a software that will help you write your essays. So you put the skeleton down and run it through Grammarly. Grammarly will help you craft whatever you need to craft. Some use ChatGPT or whatever to do some of these things. If you didn't make any attempt, if you didn't write anything, then they will write the ChatGPT or Grammarly will just give you the basic template. But if you make an attempt, no matter how bad your English is, these softwares will correct them and give you a very good thing that you can read through. Give it to somebody else to read through before you submit it, so that they can help you sequence your thought, sequence the flow of your essays. And then again, I always say this, sometimes it is us who limit ourselves. How many of these scholarship, accreditation board has time to read all these essays that are coming in? Come on. Yes. Then don't. And so as depend on God and say that God will let them pick me. That's all. Yes. Because they may have it, they do sampling. They may do sampling. So if you have a million people applying to a particular scholarship, you think they're going to read all the million essays? No, they just do some samplings. And so based on the sampling, that's it. If you are fortunate, God, and it's not fortunate, God will always make a way. Your dependence should be on the Lord. As what do you call it? John 15, 1 to 8, 10 or so. I say, if you abide in me and my word abide in you, ask what you will and it shall be done unto you. So when you asem traum now ye nia opa ni ohwehwe bia no odibe ma it becomes as if you are commanding God to give it to you and God will give it to you. They say wakwara no abra ne nye na wonam na obo abrahum bia mpaibo bia ni ho betimi agyew. And a scholarship ye wie so emfa mpaibo ntai akire. This thing is that work as if everything depends on you. And pray as if everything depends on God.
Yes.
And go try by being fasting for 1 week when you have not applied for the scholarship. Everybody and confer sumu and confer scholarship being koshe udiano.
Okay. That the young baby can cram for GPA. 80 GPA no. When GPA no say and colleges for no so. I dream bomb so now also say even GP and so crabet me ama school be a sponsor am work school no for free and
yeah, GPA no is very, very important. And you know, the other sometimes I'm advising parents. Ubu ha was say me bana anko school papa na oko city school na city school no I am wakwara no. That is not true. Sakwarani ko city school no. Now you as parents no timi boa akwara with their homework and they were getting the 95, 96, 98. That guy has a very good GPA. He can go to Harvard. Meanwhile, they go to private school and also they go to some of the high-end, what do you call it, high schools now, one neighborhood now. He will be getting 60 and 70s, which doesn't propel them to anywhere. Yes, some of the schools take a minimum cut as to what GPA level we should accept you to the college. But in the same note, as we have said, onyame be kwan.
Yeah.
Onyame be kwan, enyo nipa. And you might be the worst in your class. Listen, some of these colleges do what we call experiments. Akorani tiewu, but ye perceive fun. No ba say school mu, no be prove say itim we. And so they take the top and they take the bottom. Come and prove yourself. And so it's possible that you might not be the top of your class, and yet to be accepted to Harvard. Once you get there, you prove yourself. And you know, yes, there are these things that you need to. Most schools have their own what you call GPA or the grade points that is needed. I know that it's from state to state and from high school to high school. I think the high school GPA is up to 5 or so, and in colleges it's up to 4. And so if the higher your GPA is, the better. So if you are in high school, I'll try your best to maintain a GPA of 4+. Okay. So that if you are able to get a 4+, then when it comes to the college admissions, it is easy for you. I know right now most schools are scrapping the SAT and then the ACT exams as another determinants for entering colleges. But whereby you want to, then take the SAT and make sure that in the SAT you are scoring about 1850 and up. Because I think
that impact ye de ye dwuma de beba we mpese ye bisa bibi kra wa ha undecided children na omo ko college a omo ko no undecided na no so say na fa ho do you think say no so ma omo ko che college ho too much and I say eboa na say moa
undecided for no me say be pray adeba kwan woman say sakwara no a very serious student. Sometimes I advocate for the undecided on the sense that Ansano college, he might not have been exposed to somebody who has a knowledge in a particular field. Sir Ebianifi Ubiang Enko University. This is the first time I go university. Onshia Ubia or your doctor, Onshia Ubia or your teacher, Onshia Ubia Nasin, it may be being and so when he gets to college, such a person, my advice is that go and make sure that you do all the general art. They call it Gen Ed. All the general educational requirements, make sure you complete them and make sure you are doing good in them, so that your grade points is still in the 3.5 and up. And then, so first year, second year, you might do the generals. And then the third year, by that time, now what dream will be when you university. And at that point in time, so we'll take courses towards where you want to be at, not a amount. The downside of the Gen Ed notion is BB to say business schools near third year, any amount call into the real business class. It is our core school of business. No kotra hona di diagra. Third year, no, untimi enter into what they call business class, to do accounting, auditing, or financial planning, and all those things. You can't. And so all go straight into that area there. Then make sure that you are well prepared to get a 3.5 to enter into the third year district. The good thing about most parents, or we from Africa and Ghana especially, don't know that over here in the USA, you don't need 4 years of chemistry or biology or physics to go to medical school. The requirement is that you should have at least 1 year of each. And the problem the children face is that all school no person call medical school. And to go through first year, or your physics, or your chemistry, or your biology, now bonus, so he can carry all that weight. And if you get CCC in those subjects, there's no way you're going to go to medical school with that CCC. And to the advice, go first year, now subject name, we harma wa obit me and your good grades, woman. Yeah, those subjects, And then in the second year, when you know your way around the school, you know your way around how the school regulates the GPA, normal. Then you take one subject in physics, you take the physics class, complete the physics, the 1 year physics. Third year, you complete the 1 year chemistry. And fourth year, you complete the 1 year, biology. You have the requirement to go to medical school. By that time, now your GPA is also ends of fire. But we offer all 4 top subjects in it on the first year. If you do second year, now GPA, I say, building your GPA up is not easy. It is easier to fall than to bring it up. It is a first year, now GPA and now 3.5 and up. It is going to be difficult. It implies that subsequent ones you should be doing A, because the whole average is 4. And in the first year, when you're 3.5, or pursue increase what do you call GPA now? It implies that second year, you should have a GPA of at least 3.6, 3.7. Then you are still at the 3.5 plus. And the third year, so you have to build it better than you did then. But meanwhile, if we are at first year or GPA 4.0 or saving buffer, it do call second year, now you 3.5, the average, you are still in the good buffer. I'm not saying it's a go and drop, but one build it from the beginning in India. It is the higher you go, the more difficult it is to rebuild the GPA, structure. And one other thing that I want to warn parents and the students there, I know most schools have what you call the academic probation. If your GPA is below 1.75, I think in New York State is 1.75. If your GPA is below 1.75, they have what is called academic probation. And no, 1 year, amount another semester, or approve school need to be ready. Yes. And the school for baby, I wanted to school my own year, They have gone through what we call the academic probation, and they couldn't improve. And based on that, no untimin coffee, and also untimin trans school, or not waka chrome ho. Obana were here also co school. Well, semester next one to make up a 5 year ones, no assign for 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Mekai pa se me nyonko bi osofo bi ni me di ne yire ho nkoma na fe papa na ye na awerɛho no osu. Ne yire no ne kru ni nim so nyame adom wa wie college obekɔ medical school ni jaware bam di kon na ye. Afe ni aware wie ni trans ni asese no ma. Onkonko bi samu a fe awura no koduru school mu hɔ no. O ye ni efie ni school. Wantimi ankɔ n'anim after second year no. Eduru sa na ya na ya, but again we can always resuscitate into or mebo amanya make say emane how yenko register na yem1 na onko. And within 1.5 year the girl completed the BSc nicely with very good grade. He became a bank manager. The encouragement, but nyame can say yenhwe ye na ye man am follow below the academic probation line on the same note to some Kwarani to so make sure you maintain it. Send na me can me ba no kono nanka ya dwina sa o ni pa or first year now 16 credits all at 4.0 dia ni just aka kakra bi nka obewi ma nanso no so okoto namfo bi e ma namfo no eyi na dwen free adesua ne so enti mira o wie 4 years no na me wira akọ me angasa me ba na me wira akọ na yi but God through some means e ma me koshia professor bi e wo another school and I mean ni di nkomo ne professor ne can say Edward, don't worry. Most students flop in the first 4 years, but that doesn't mean that we write them out. Now, he was a lecturer in, Albany College of Public Health. And also, Edward, let your daughter go and do this class and do this class. And when she finishes, let her call me. Those 2 classes again. No, and when you B pluses. And so we called the professor, and the professor said, we accept her into the master's program here. And then Menuka said, well, we need PhD in epidemiology. But Nina said, we as parents get involved and God on our side, we can always make it. We can always make it. Yamano onye tiwiye onye bonfo onyame kan yen ho sene onyame boa Daniel Meshach ne Abednego no obeboa yen ma no enti moma yen fa mpaebo entire manachi. Let's encourage them, let's entice them. Oye bibi oya ade ano abona baso o koskuru hu so aya ade obone hu modern wosmeto bicycle ama unya bicycle ma no hu so oya ade wosmeto motor ama enkakra because we want the best for them.
Yeah. Oh, the daddy nyame sharp adofo amutie ye mu se daddy nsem no de pa nti mutie wi no ma subscribe no ma like no ma share ma mu nua no nso atie se the daddy ka no utim sa awofo say ye very serious involved on their side. The man e ko college na mema ya kenye so omo anyini nti eja omo sa ebi mo ho omo agro da so omo ani so yeah involved near encourage you na ye sure empire bonne to set how much kopem say nyame de omo bedu that the other was we really appreciate say nyame ama wa bebie niam so eti bra ye ma wo ba be mpa cha bibi kakra da wakoma so apesa wo kakra dofo etie ye ne
nyina tie atwam ni say moma yemfa yen ho nto awurade so no no nyame de onno num yen daachi and na de yehu ni yehu but onim ni daachi bi oba no ebeye so de ne ma ehye awurade nsa now the mpaebo tie na chia onyame God will work the tapestry of his life and eventually bring him to a successful end. Don't write your child off. Don't write any child in the church off. God knows what he is doing. As I said, it been me a late status. It been me a late status. Then be a minimum money come say, made me first year and second year results because when I went to the university, I was a player. I was just fooling around. I just didn't know what I was doing. It was in the third year that God woke me up. And I cried, and he said, Edward, trust in me. I'll take you to a successful end. By the time I finished second year going to at Legon, it was 3 years. So by the time I finished second year going to the third year, now my average was a C+. And it was difficult even to get a second class lower with that going to the third year. But onyame nam kwan bi so ema minya arehwemu mi gina ho na mi so and a radical terms, you go forward and see my hand at work on your behalf. In the third year, when I entered third year, I had B pluses and A. My thesis was adopted by the university, and me and me implemented that thesis, you know. And so when the results came, my professor Shiam said, Edward, we should have given you a second class upper, but because of your first and second year grading, so we couldn't do that. So we gave you a second lower. But even with that, I was able to enter into a graduate school. I completed my MBA. I've done several courses. I've worked in several places. Don't compare your child to anybody. Your child is nobody's child. It is your child. It is God's child. Oh, she's not a nurse. So why do you want to force that child into be a nurse? Or in the middle of the night will be a dear but so let's not force our kids into professions be a mwa woma akore bia nto no boase na onhwehwe ne onyame pese odene ko onyame so de ne duru ha obehu. That doesn't mean say monso nkwara no mon relax. Stretch yourself for the best. Stretch yourself for the best. Let something inspire you to go for the best. And you understand, you will get there. I met one lady, oh, come on. This girl, when he was in grade 11, he said, I want to find a cure to cancer. Wow. I was so surprised. But guess what? She's now working as a doctor in the Cancer Research Institute. That was what she wanted to do. And Mankarano, dream high, find something, never see when you soon a year at the con. Lunyamebe bow. It's not so unyamedi at the pebble deal more. A bit me a jumama, a pinum that she be.
Adi, nyame shra pa da de da se se de ekopa ya dofo no ma ha de de adwumade ne beba wiye ai se bo hwe ensem papa da de dia beku ha se ya na che se amali dia boafo su YouTube channel ha ekoyie pa nti shama wonua na wonti ne moa ono nso ne fie ye da mo ase nyame shra mo nyina ye ma obi a otie ye. Bye bye.
Amen.
Daddy, nyame
Mame.